Hi Tabitha, you asked for help with number 12 on 8.2, and it asks you to determine the solution to the corresponding system of equations that you would get from this matrix here. This matrix is already given to you in reduced row echelon form, and so the way that I like to think about these particular problems is, I think in terms of the columns, each column I think of it as, so here's the first column. That column refers to the first variable. So, everything in that column would be multiplied by an x. In the second column, you would have everything in that column kind of multiplied by a y, and so on. And that's how you kind of think of the matrix. So each column kind of represents the variable. And then the other bit is that every one of these, and so now I'm going to just erase these arrows here. Every one of these is going to give rise to rows, is going to give you an equation. So let's do the first equation. We're going to do it going across the first row. We're going to get the first equation. And so the first equation you would get would be, 1 times x, which is just x, plus, then you move over to the next column, 0 times y, well, that's just 0. So I'm not going to write it. And then plus 9 times z, and so I'm going to write that one down, 9z. And then you have this line, which really stands for the equal sign, equals, and then -3. And so that's how you turn a row, that's how you turn this row like this into an equation. And every row can be done in a similar manner. Let's do the next row. Okay, I'm going to change the colors. Okay, so now we're going to go across this row, and we're going to come up with our next equation for our system. So the way that it goes is, you go 0 times x, and that's going to be 0. So I'm not going to write that one down. And then you'll do 1 times y, and so that's going to be y. And then you'll have -4 times z, so you have a plus -4, which is -4z. And then you have your equals, and then you have your 20. So again, this row right here that we did is going to give you this equation. And the final row is a row that will help determine whether you have an inconsistent equation or not. So you do the same thing here, except everything is 0 times 0 plus 0 times, 0 times, you'll have, let's do the same, we'll just do a different color here. You have 0 times x plus 0 times y plus 0 times z, and that's just 0, equals 0. So in this last equation right here, you get 0 equals 0. And that's, as we know, 0 does equal 0. So that's consistent. That's what they're talking about. If you end up having an equation where there's 0 equals 1 or some other number, we know they're not equal, so that's inconsistent. And that's how you determine inconsistency. So anyway, from this point, what you do is you want to rewrite it in terms of a parametric equation. So what you do is you're going to basically take each one of these equations and just move the common variables over. That's what I'm going to do here in this next round. For the first one, I'm going to get x equals -9z minus 3. And then for the second equation, I'm going to get y equals, and then bringing that 4z over, -4z, it becomes a positive 4z plus 20. And you notice here that you have your variable z in common. So it's a parametric equation where z is your free parameter. And that's how you end up getting a solution. This is the solution, and it's consistent. Okay. And so the solutions would be, and so this is in terms of the equations, and the way that you can write down your actual solutions in vector form is since this is your x variable, oops, excuse me. This is where your x variable is going to go in your vector, your y variable, and your z. What does x equal? Well, x equals this, negative 9z minus 3. So I'd put negative 9z minus 3. And then your y variable, what is that going to equal? Well, that equals that expression. So we can write 4z plus 20. And then in the final spot for the xyz, what is z? Well, it's just itself in terms of z, right? And that's how you write the solutions. Z is allowed to be any real number, and if you plug in any value for z, you would get solutions to this system.